Welcome to Ellery's Room. Here I tell stories to help you escape the outside world and dive straight into the chaos of your imagination. If you like what I do, subscribing helps more than you know. Now lock the door, turn down the lights, and let's begin. Chicago always felt invincible to me. A city stitched together by steel beams, gridlocked streets, and the quiet conviction that nothing truly catastrophic could shatter its rhythm. That illusion ripped apart on the morning of May 18th, 2025, when the local station switched from weather chatter about an approaching spring heat wave, 91 degrees Fahrenheit predicted by dusk, to shaky phone videos of paramedics backing away from thrashing patients outside Northwestern Memorial. By noon, every river crossing downtown had jammed, sirens layered over each other like a broken symphony, and my architecture firm workshop at the AIA office on South Wabash abruptly dismissed us to shelter in place. I tried to drive out of the loop, but at East Ontario, a delivery van hit a traffic light and scattered glass like glitter. I abandoned my rented Corolla beneath the Ohio Street overpass and followed others heading west on foot, aiming for the Blue Line, but finding its gates locked. I ended up on West Haddon, a mile north of the United Center, where William H. Brown Elementary still stood, behind a wrought iron fence. A police cruiser, doors open, lights still spinning, was angled across the school's loading bay. The building's polished limestone looked sturdy, familiar, safe. At the front entrance, a fifth-grade teacher named Angela Dunn waved a fluorescent binder in the air and yelled for anyone who was unhurt to come inside fast. I followed her and 6 other strangers through the vestibule, just as 3 staggering figures, gray-eyed, blood around their mouths, lurched onto the playground and smacked against the security mesh. The teacher sealed the inner doors with a janitor's metal key card, then snapped the panic bar back into place with a decisive clang that stopped conversation cold. Inside, the hall smelled of disinfectant and pencil shavings. We introduced ourselves in hushed sentences more out of reflex than courtesy. I was Claire Lawson, 32, project designer from Newark on a week-long stay. Angela, 28, homeroom teacher, whose priority, she said, was my kids in room 12. Raymond Ray Benning, 47, a retired CTA security supervisor carrying a concealed 9mm that he only half disguised under his Cubs jacket. Dr. David Tran, 39, pediatric resident who had been picking up N95 masks from the hospital loading dock. Teresa Webera, 38, freelance tax accountant wearing running shoes and a Lakeview East Neighborhood Watch armband. Liam Grant, 26, a DePaul grad student track coach who kept adjusting the strap of an overstuffed hiking pack. And Wendell Price, 58, the school's night custodian who had returned to check on his cat before the transit shutdown. It took me nearly an hour to notice the gauze taped to Wendell's forearm. He said he had scraped it on the dumpster lid. His gaze kept sliding away from mine. Angela led us deeper, past rows of hibernating lockers painted Cubs blue, toward her classroom. Room 12 looked like every grade school memory collaged together. Fluorescent ceiling panels, motivational posters about growth mindset, and 21 tiny desks facing a smartboard. 11 children sat against the far wall, knees hugged to chests, each wearing noise-canceling headphones, usually reserved for fire drill-sensitive students. The kids watched us with wide, calculating expressions. Their parents were stuck on the expressways, Angela told us. I promised I'd keep them quiet and alive. She flicked the deadbolt behind us, sealing the kids in without asking our opinion. Ray objected first, muttering that locking potential help behind a door was bad tactical thinking. David reminded him the city's 911 system had already looped into a recorded message. No rescue was en route. Teresa started stacking tables across the south stairwell while Liam and I scavenged the cafeteria for bottled water. The service elevator dinged faintly somewhere above, and every neck in the hallway jerked toward the sound, a reflex, no words required. Cell service devolved into an SOS-only mode. The last alert I received was a push notice from WGN reporting aggressive flu-like assaults in Glenview. It came with a blurry still of police forming a cordon at Willow Road. After that, our phone slipped into silent brick status. We switched to Angela's walkie-talkies meant for recess monitors, choosing Channel 5 because the others crackled with distress calls we could do nothing about. By sundown, we understood the infected followed sound more than sight. From the library windows, we watched them gather on the corner of Western and Iowa. Dozens of stumbling silhouettes, tracing the fence line, driven by some residual muscle memory of the school bell that had rung at 2:45. One kept smashing her shoulder into a parked school bus, determined to board. When she finally broke a window, a horn blared, and half the horde flocked to the racket, slamming palms onto yellow steel until the horn died. Seeing that, Liam whispered that the city looked like a vibrating speaker, making people dance to feedback. No one laughed. We rationed food, cafeteria crackers, cartons of shelf-stable milk, and a crate of underripe oranges from the nurses' lounge. Ray insisted the gym's vending machines contained protein bars, so he and I made the trip using flashlights with red filters taken from the science lab. The gym doors opened onto a floor gleaming under emergency lights, but the vending alcove sat opposite a set of push-bar exits whose vertical glass slits showed night outside. Ray positioned himself to monitor those slits, his pistol held flat against his thigh. "You ever shoot?" he asked. I told him my father had once taught me on a .22 rifle at a quarry in Sussex County, but that hardly counted. Ray popped a candy bar from the machine, handed it over, and murmured that the ammo in his Glock wouldn't last if more than a handful breached the perimeter. "Conserve," he said, as if commanding a squad. Back near the library, Wendell was sweating through his coveralls, though the air conditioning had shut down. He peeled away the gauze, no scrape, but a purplish semicircle on his arm, the size of a child's bite. David stepped back, jaw tight. The infected we had seen outside were covered in similar bruised rings. Wendell's voice quavered as he swore it happened in a stairwell when a teenage girl, out of her mind, lunged at him. He begged for a cold compress, said he felt only dizzy. Teresa stared at him like he was already behind glass. Angela arrived, looked once at the wound, and declared Wendell must isolate in the nurse's office, alone. Ray agreed, hand drifting to his waistband. David wanted more time, referencing viruses with long incubation periods. Liam argued that if Wendell turned violent, the kids must not watch. The debate rose until Angela's walkie screeched feedback and one of the headphone-clad children behind the locked door let out a thin cry, the first sound from any of them all day. Outside, as if in response, fists thudded against the entry glass at the far end of the hall. We hustled Wendell into the nurse's suite, locking the door from the outside. David slid the nurse's heavy gurney across it, then stacked 2 plastic storage totes on top for good measure. Through the safety glass window, I saw Wendell sit on the examination cot, head lowered, the glow of a battery lantern painting him in pale gold. He mouthed, "I'm sorry," as we backed away. Night stretched minute by minute like watching an hourglass empty one grain at a time. The building exhaled pops and creaks as ducts cooled. I passed time cataloging potential exit routes, the roof hatch above the auditorium, the custodial ramp leading to the dumpsters, the skylight in the art room. Each had a flaw, jammed mechanism, exposed yard, or ladder bolted from outside. Teresa tried to find a broadcast on an old crank radio from the stem cart, turning the dial slowly. Only static and the faint whine of a NOAA alert repeated, "Shelter in place. Avoid infected individuals. Do not attempt relocation." At 1:30 a.m., a window shattered near the faculty lounge. Ray, Teresa, and I investigated. A folding chair lay on the floor beneath a jagged pane. Beyond, 2 infected pressed their faces through broken glass. Ray motioned us back and fired once. The shot punched a single neat hole in the closer figure's forehead. Both bodies crumpled on the patio, but the report rang like a gong through every corridor. Within seconds, fists hammered at 3 different doors. Ray swore at himself for forgetting how sound carried in cinder-block hallways. We sprinted toward the main vestibule, where a chain-link security gate separated the lobby from the administrative wing. Dozens, maybe 40, infected now clung to the outside doors, their movements synchronized by some dreadful instinct, glass spider-webbed under their combined pounding. I retreated to the library where Angela hunched over a stack of picture books, reading to keep her students calm. Her voice stayed level, each syllable measured. David approached with the news of the breach. Angela's eyes flicked to the door, then back to the children. She finished the sentence she was reading before she spoke. "This school was built in 1923, she whispered. "The stage wings have a bomb shelter stairwell that leads to the boiler annex. There's a service hatch big enough for adults. The kids go first." She would not debate the order. At 2:30, we ushered the 11 children through a side exit onto the backstage ramp. Ray led, pistol raised. A trail of infected, attracted by earlier gunfire, filtered toward the auditorium doors. But we kept ahead of them, shutting metal-framed fire curtains as barriers. Teresa cracked glow sticks to line the floor so the children could see. Angela guided them by name. "Emmett, hold Carly's sleeve. Carly, guide Diego." Their tiny sneakers squeaked on linoleum. That squeak somehow louder than Ray's measured steps. David paused by the nurse's office. "We can't leave Wendell," he said. The window revealed the custodian on the floor, face hidden in his arms. A dark halo soaked the vinyl beneath him. David checked his pulse through the glass and shook his head once. We left the body locked in, unspoken agreement that it was the safest kindness available. The bomb shelter stairwell, relic of Cold War paranoia, spiraled 3 flights down. The concrete air felt cool and damp, smelling of old furnace ash. At the bottom, Ray pried open the square maintenance hatch. Rusty but yielding, the passage beyond angled upward to a grated utility lid that surfaced in the faculty parking lot. Daylight seeped around its edges. Dawn. For a moment, hope. Ray climbed first, shouldering the lid ajar. Outside, the lot looked clear except for a toppled flagpole and a single maintenance van. He surfaced, lifted the nearest child, and motioned. 2 more followed. Then a figure sprinted from behind the van, an adult infected in a soaked business suit. It collided with Ray so fast I registered only the arc of Ray's elbow, the flash of the pistol, then both forms toppling behind a minivan. A shot thundered. Angela screamed, not a sound of panic, but a command. "Down!" Every child ducked. Teresa and I levered kids backward, deeper into the tunnel. David lunged up the ladder to drag Ray back, but more shapes rounded the corner of the gym annex. 5, 10, 15, drawn by the muzzle blast. Ray's gun clattered onto the pavement. He didn't rise. David yanked the lid shut just as an infected hand slapped over the gap. Bones cracked as he forced metal against flesh. The hand withdrew. He jammed a maintenance key in the latch, twisting until the steel bent. Above, fists beat like hail on a drumhead, muffled by 2 inches of iron. Angela inhaled sharply but steadied. Her focus returned to the children. We retreated through the tunnel until the noise faded. Liam suggested the steam trench network that paralleled the blue line might grant us distance from the school. He remembered a maintenance schematic from his volunteer hours in campus facilities. I fetched the flashlight from his bag and saw, for the first time, a tear slick on his cheek. We navigated by wristwatch and instinct, counting turns, following the warm breeze that always drifts toward the lake. After 40 minutes, we reached a grated ladder opening behind a Whole Foods loading dock on West Chicago Avenue. Dawn painted the sky a bruised orange. The street lay empty, except for a crushed ambulance and a fire hydrant, geysering water across 2 lanes. Smoke rose from somewhere near Goose Island. The chorus of distant alarms had softened, replaced by erratic pops of gunfire miles away. Angela emerged, scanned for threats, then lined the children behind her. She looked back at me. "Northwestern's evacuation point is supposed to be at Lincoln Park Zoo," she murmured. "Open grounds. We go there." Teresa reasoned that the shoreline path might be clear. David volunteered to lead. Our group now numbered 16, 11 children, 5 adults. We arranged ourselves into pairs, 1 kid per grown-up. I took Diego, a quiet boy whose Lego shirt was 2 sizes too big. He offered me a half orange saved from last night. I pocketed it like a treaty. As we hurried east, I thought of Ray, his matter-of-fact caution, the single candy bar he'd forced into my hand, and wondered if he had felt any pain. The cityscape around us looked unreal, like a matte painting backdrop. Shattered bus shelters, rotating traffic lights with no traffic, wind dragging litter down 6-lane avenues. Yet the sun felt warm on my neck. The gulls cried over the river and the smell of lake water drifted in, all reminders that the world still functioned just beyond the chaos. We reached the corner of North Halstead and West Division at 7:15, the exact moment the Chicago Fire Department's Station 4 generator failed. The garage doors, half open, emitted a metallic scream and crashed shut, startling pigeons into flight. That sound summoned a cluster of infected from the petrol station across the street. The creatures moved erratically, stumbling yet accelerating when they spotted motion. David calmly directed us behind a row of delivery trucks. We crouched, waited. The infected passed within 10 yards, oblivious to our hushed presence. Their eyes seemed fixed on something else, perhaps noise further away. That near miss taught me the difference between panic and discipline. We arrived at the zoo's west gate by 8:30. Military tents had been erected on the main lawn, but no troops remained, only abandoned stretchers and IV racks swaying in a light breeze. A notice taped to a folding table read, "Evac relocated to Navy Pier, 5 o'clock." Fresh footprints and drag marks streaked toward the lagoon. We debated following, but decided the open pier might already be compromised. Instead, we regrouped near the Kovler Lion House, whose thick walls offered vantage to see approaching threats. Angela began inventorying supplies. Liam took 2 older children to scavenge the concession stands. Teresa found a solar-powered emergency radio clipped to a volunteer's desk. At 10:10, the NOAA channel broadcast a new directive. Avoid large urban congregations, reports of secondary infection clusters along lakefront evacuation corridors. Maintain quarantine. The voice, strained, cut off mid-sentence before repeating. Teresa shut the radio off and glanced at me. Silent agreement formed. We were on our own. That afternoon, we buried Ray in the lion enclosure's mulch bed, the closest thing we could manage to a grave without tools. David said a few words about guardianship and sacrifice, phrases not dressed in ceremony. Angela had the children choose smooth stones from the lagoon shore and place them on the mound. Diego pressed his orange into the freshly turned earth. I let it stay. By dusk of the second day, the infected had thinned in our immediate zone, perhaps drawn south by Navy Pier's commotion. We took inventory. 8 unopened cases of bottled water from the Lincoln Park maintenance shed, a crate of kettle corn, 24 cereal bars, and a half box of children's acetaminophen. The kids camped inside the Lion House's staff room. We adults rotated watch at the iron-barred windows. The air smelled of hay and disinfectant, a mix almost pleasant compared to the stench that had hung over West Haddon. Sometime after midnight, a faint beam swept across the western edge of the park, flashlight or headlamp. I signaled Angela. We moved to vantage. 2 silhouettes in bicycle helmets guided a flatbed tricycle piled with medical crates. They kept their lights low, scanning methodically. David recognized the branded cases, Northwestern Emergency Field Kits. He called out in a firm, level voice, announcing our group, our uninfected status, and the presence of children. The cyclists froze, whispered to each other, then approached. Their names were Nash and Farida, volunteer EMTs who had evacuated patients until the hospital's basement generators failed and staff scattered. They confirmed that large pockets of infected still roamed downtown, but that small survivor clusters were gathering at the old steel yards in South Deering, where industrial fencing created defensible lines. Farida eyed our group, particularly the children, and offered to lead us there at first light via side streets and rail spur paths. Angela hesitated only long enough to gauge the trustworthiness in their posture, then nodded, and that is where my account pauses. We remain inside the lion house as I write, my notepad steady on a stainless counter still chalk-labeled, "Vitamin supplements for cubs." The city outside crackles with distant fires, but the sky above the lake horizon glows with dawn's first gray stripe. I can hear Diego whispering a story to the youngest girl, inventing superheroes who never miss their parents' call. Angela rehearses the journey's order under her breath, counting heads by flashlight. David readies gauze and tape for scrapes we do not yet have. Liam sharpens a broken broom handle against concrete, every stroke a quiet declaration that he intends to survive. Teresa unfolds a crumpled tourist map and traces our route with a concession stand crayon. I focus on sensory anchors, the hum of the Lion House ventilation fan still powered by backup solar, the distant gulls wheeling over Lake Michigan, the tang of kettle corn lingering in the air. Each detail grounds me more effectively than any mantra. I do not know if the South Deering Yard will be secure, how long food will last, or when outside aid might return. I know only that we have chosen to move together, to guard the children, and to honor the man who fell buying us daylight. Fear will ride with us, but it will not steer. If someone finds these pages and the world has righted itself, remember William H. Brown Elementary, its blue lockers, its teacher who became a field marshal of grace, its halls that absorbed gunshots and quiet sobs alike. Remember Ray Benning, who stood in a doorway and bought strangers a sunrise. And remember that the most fragile promises, an orange shared, a hand held during a tunnel crawl, a picture book whispered under emergency lights, can hold longer than steel when the city shakes. That's all for tonight. The story is over, but the silence it leaves behind isn't empty. If it follows you, don't try to explain it. Some things aren't meant to be understood. Just know that Alori's room is always here, waiting. And sometimes, the room remembers who listened.